Well, today, the 2nd of October, is the 25th anniversary of the founding of the South African Human Rights Commission. The Commission became one of the first of the Chapter 9 institutions dedicated to defending democracy. Joining me now is Mohammed Armiyama, Commissioner at the Human Rights Commission. Mr. Commissioner, good afternoon to you. Happy birthday to the Commission, if I may say. Firstly, when the Commission was started, what was the main aim? What was the point of the South African Human Rights Commission?
Thank you, Program Director. When the Commission was started in 1996, the aim was basically never to repeat a horrendous past of the atrocities of apartheid. That was the reality, to protect human rights, at all costs. And hence the Human Rights Commission was created in terms of the South African Human Rights Commission Act. And in terms of that, it was given an independence to do so to protect, promote and monitor human rights in the country, and to do so without fear, favor or prejudice. And it was given an independence to do so. And that's how the Human Rights Commission started back in 1996, on the 21st of March 1996. And it was launched by President Mandela himself. Yeah. So we've come a long way in that respect.
Do you think that the role has changed much over the years? I mean, it seems the issues that you deal with have changed over the years.
No, absolutely. Look, there was no script on which, besides, on how to do it. I mean, there was no kind of a roadmap, except that these were human rights activists that were appointed, those commissions of the first generation. I'd call them the first generation. We like the third generation down the line. But basically, they were given a constitutional mandate, they were given an independence to do their work, and then they were told, go and do your work, and we'll give you the independence to do so. And you speak truth to power to protect, monitor human rights. Now, the question you ask is a very important question. What has happened since then? There are two most important things that happened. One is, in terms of the old South African Human Rights Commission Act, it was commissioners among themselves, once they were duly appointed by Parliament, that they would appoint their own chairperson and a deputy chairperson in terms of the Act itself. Subsequently, the Act has been amended because the mandates have changed along the way. And now, with the South African Human Rights Commission Act of 2013, the President appoints, Parliament appoints all 8 commissioners, but it is a prerogative of the President to appoint the chairperson and the deputy chairperson of this Human Rights Commission. Also given with basically the same powers to act independently and to do so without fear, favor and prejudice, and speak truth to power and protect vigorously the rights of the poor and the vulnerable and the marginalized communities in our society. And I think we have come a long way since then in terms of the mandate that we have, and the kind of work that's so intensive as we go into the constitutional democracy 25 years down the line. So today we had a lovely session where we had learned from the shared experience of the first and second generation commissioners who shared the experience with us, including the staff members who've been there with us for 20 years, to show us how things were done and how they boldly, dealt with their positions. To pave the way. Hence, South Africa has become the envy of the world in the way the Human Rights Commission operates. And therefore, in 25 years, I think we've done a pretty good job.
It's interesting because, I mean, the way that we conceive, the way we think about human rights is changing and evolving. So 100 years ago, it was about, and the phrase then was one man, one vote, right? Then it became one person, one vote. Then it became around issues of freedom of expression, for example. Let me put it another way. When the Constitution was signed by then-President Nelson Mandela in 1996, no one knew then, or very few people realized, it would lead to gay marriage being recognized almost 20 years later. Human rights evolve, don't they?
It evolves all the time. It's a question of education of a society that must embrace the change as well. Soviets, you have a laudable constitution, and you don't automatically understand the dynamics of that. So you have to take a whole society through an education process, which we are doing right now. In fact, what we have done is we have now ensured that we, together with the Department of Basic Education, have embarked on a journey where we're embedding the Bill of Rights within the curriculum of the life orientation program from grade 4 to grade 12. And I think in the next decade, you will find, issues that you mentioned now. Society will evolve in a way to respect each other in a much more remarkable and a smarter way than what we're doing now. Because there's a lot of tensions you're playing with at the moment. You're dealing with a lot of tensions between old values and values as they're evolving in society. And in order to do that, you need to gear society to appreciate and understand how to embrace those changes accordingly as well. And that's what we're seeing in our space.
Your commission plays a really important role in mediating those. Society like ours, most unequal society, needs an organization and needs leadership to mediate those conversations. And that's in a way what you do. And this takes me to another point. You talk about how you think our society will evolve around human rights, perhaps in a remarkable way over the next 10 years. But one of the things that comes up time and time and time again is issues around race. And these are often issues that you have to deal with. Do you believe that this is because our society is more racist than it was? Or is there another dynamic playing out that means that your organization has to deal with complaints about race so often?
I think it will be very, I wouldn't say foolish, but I think it will be very naive for us to think that, at the signing of the Constitution into law on the 10th of December 1996, the final Constitution, that would have eradicated racism. I think racism itself, is a value that's taught in your homes. And hence what happens is, we're looking at a generation now, 25 years later, one would have thought those kind of dynamics would have played itself out in society. So these are values that comes from the home and, around the braais and all those kind of things where people talk about this. And hence what we need to do is we need to be vigilant about our democracy and how we, address those issues. The preamble clearly talks about the issue of the injustice of the past. We also understood that a society that was, born post-1994 was a society that came from a very painful past that had all these kind of problems and tensions that were there. And hence we needed a dedicated pool of people to come on board to address those kind of issues. And we had to be vigilant and we had to safeguard society from continuing to go into that space. Hence we were given the independence to do so. We have a complaints handling mechanism which we're working very closely with. We're working through. And we are encouraging people who are confronted with those kind of issues on racism, intolerance, on religion, and all the other things you mentioned, to take these matters to the Equality Court, which is basically a court located in all 284 magisterial districts of this country, and it's a free of charge service. And if they need our services, we have 9 provincial offices in the whole country that can assist if they need those kind of things. People are not making use of those mechanisms enough. I think if we did that, we would have sent out a clear message that society is educated enough to take on those challenges. And I think these are the challenges that the Human Rights Commission is confronted on a daily basis. But this is how we're dealing with the issue. We're plowing through the field, and as we're going through, we not only, you mediate, you negotiate, you arbitrate, A worst case scenario is when we go to court. It's, for example, like what happened in John Koelani's case in the issue of Masuku itself, you see. Because we are saying that racism has no place in this country. It must be smashed. That's the long and this thing. And we will do everything in our powers as a Human Rights Commission to do so. In fact, we have a focal area commissioner that particularly deals with the question of equality on the issues that you basically presented before me now as well. So yes, it's a good, work in progress kind of measures that we need to be working towards.
It strikes me that the United States could do with the South African Human Rights Commission for a couple of years, because they need someone to mediate the problems that they have there too. But do you think that our society is moving in the right direction or the wrong direction, Mr. Commissioner? The optimistic side of me, I think, wants to agree with you that over the next 10 years we're going to see human rights evolving and our society changing. And there's plenty of evidence of how our society has changed in many, many ways. And yet, in some ways, all it can take is one person publishing a racist advert for shampoo, and we can see how thin the veneer or how thin the skin is over the scar of our past.
I fully agree with you, Eusebius, and that is why I'm saying we don't live in an ideal society, we live in a real world. And those realities are knocking on our doors every time. I mean, every time we play rugby and we win the World Cup, everybody is united, like never before. But then, it takes a shampoo advert to throw, the cat among the pigeons, and it's all helter-skelter itself. So yes, it's a question of diversity training. It's a question of, ongoing advocacy and training issues that must come in, and it's a whole value system that needs to be, we need to have these conversations. We need to have these conversations in a robust way. Maybe we're not doing that, And I think what we need to do as a Human Rights Commission, one thing we understood that, for 58 million people, the South African Human Rights Commission has 200 people, 8 commissioners and 190 staff. Now, as a result of that, there is no way that we're going to get to the length and breadth of this country, working through the principles of Chapter 2 to effect, the Bill of Rights. Hence, we have to take hands with civil society organizations and partnerships. We need to reach out to the length and breadth of this country in order to get our message loud and clear. We have done so very successfully with the Department of Basic Education, where in 2017 we were basically lauded by the Human Rights Council for establishing, the world's first comprehensive human rights education program. I mean, nobody gave us a formula for that. We just went and we brought all like-minded people from government, from civil society, from, Chapter 9. We all put our heads together, and this is what we've come up with. But equally so, what you're saying is very important. We need to guard our democracy. We need to guard it with our lives because it was built on blood, sweat, and tears. It just didn't fall from the air. And that's what we need to pass this message on to our children and generations to come. And we are seeing good results in this regard, and we will work towards it. We will chip away at the mountain. It's not going to be easy, but it's a vibrant environment for which we think we have the capacity and we have the will to make it happen.
Mr.